Good morning. Good morning. I'm Rachel Mark, she, her pronouns, and I look forward to sharing the leadership of today's service with members of the Social Justice Roundtable. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, and however you spend your days, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. We invite you to join us for coffee hour following this morning's service, either location or on Zoom. I invite you to take this moment to hold our space here as sacred by silencing your electronic devices and preparing yourself to be present. Online or in person, we are grateful for this time together.
We have chosen to bring ourselves here to the sanctuary today to gather as a community of faith. We join together in solidarity as a covenanted people who are drawn together by the promise of connection and the mysterious pull of the unanswerable. As seekers, wanderers, appreciators of nature, and creators of connection, our paths have converged today so that we might become present to the spirit that is worship. And so, let us worship together.
Each week, it is our tradition to light a chalice, which casts a circle of light to hold us all. As we create anew this symbol of our shared faith, let's reflect on these words by Deborah Falk. The chalice is a symbol. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance. A faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice. A faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people. A faith that demands the living out of goodness. A faith that requires thoughtfulness. A faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us.
We affirm our mission to encourage, equip, and empower, and we ask that you join in the affirmation of our covenant with one another. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Go out and tell our story, let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you, make them hear you. How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you, make them hear you. And say to all who blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles which are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Go out and tell the stories to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And tell them in our struggle we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. When they hear you, I'll be near you again.
Today's story is called Desmond Gets Free, written by Matt Mayer and illustrated by Kim Pham. I might also suggest that you take note of the characters' first names. You might be able to make somewhat of a connection there. Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every morning, Desmond woke with the the sunrise, and would spend all day playing in the meadow. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of that meadow under the beautiful starry sky. One night, though, Desmond awoke when it was still dark out. He tried to roll over to a more comfortable spot, but something wasn't right. Desmond realized that his tail was stuck right to the ground and beginning to throb with pain. He felt behind him, and there was a huge boulder that seemed to have fallen in the middle of the meadow, just on his tail. Desmond pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. He pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. And he pushed and tugged and pushed and tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw a giraffe nearby in the grass. Good news, he thought. Oh, giraffe, Desmond cried, could you please push the boulder a few inches in the other direction so that I could go free? The giraffe looked at Desmond and laughed the way giraffes do. Silly mouse, said the giraffe, that's no boulder. That's an elephant that's fallen asleep in the middle of the meadow, just on your tail. Well, if you could just wake the elephant and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction, I could go free. Well, replied the giraffe, you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this. Desmond quietly replied, well, I do not appreciate your neutrality. The giraffe wandered off, and Desmond tried calling out to the elephant to wake him up. But those giant ears were just too far away on the other side of that giant elephant body. So again, Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail. He pushed and he tugged, and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up again, a gazelle wandered by. Oh, gazelle, he cried, gazelle, it seems that an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I'm stuck and it hurts. I wonder if you could gently wake him and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I might go free. Well, said the gazelle, I see your problem there. But you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this. Desmond replied, almost to himself this time, I do not appreciate your neutrality. Desmond tried again to call out to the elephant. He tried again to push the giant animal away. He tried again and again to tug his little tail free, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up for the last time, he saw another mouse wandering through the meadow. Sorry. My name is Nelson. Nelson, this giant elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you might run over and call out into his giant ears and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I can go free, Desmond asked. Of course, said Nelson. Nelson ran all the way to the other end of that giant elephant body, and he called up to those giant elephant ears at the top of that giant elephant head. But the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he was too comfortable to move. Nelson ran back to Desmond, a little out of breath, and said, I have an idea. Don't move. And he ran off. I won't, muttered Desmond. A little while later, though, Nelson emerged through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson had found 3 other mouse friends to help him, and each one of them had also brought another 3 friends. The whole group of them ran over to the giant head of that giant elephant. One mouse scrambled up onto the shoulders of another, and another mouse scrambled up on her shoulders. And then one after the other, they climbed up until the whole group of them had formed a long mouse ladder right up the side of the elephant. At last, Nelson climbed up the shoulders of his mouse friends, one on top of the other, until he was way up on that giant elephant head, standing next to that giant elephant ear. "Excuse me," he called right into that ear. "It seems like you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you could just roll over a few inches in the other direction so he might go free." The giant elephant made a giant low groan. "Grumph. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away." So Nelson asked more of his mouse friends to climb up. And one by one, they helped each other up the side of the elephant. One by one, they called out into that giant elephant ear on top of that giant elephant head. Again, the giant elephant made a giant low groan. "Grumph. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away." Well, then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to the mice, and then all at once they yelled out together, "Excuse us! It seems you've fallen asleep on our friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. Roll over a few inches in the other direction so he can go free." This time, all those voices together right next to the elephant's ear were too loud to ignore. "I was comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you just agree to stop making such a racket," the elephant cried out. And then the elephant rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice helped each other climb back down, and Desmond was finally free. Desmond and Nelson and all their mouse friends spent the rest of that beautiful day playing in the middle of that beautiful meadow. Did you get the connection between the names? South Africa? Okay, good.
Hello, everybody. Well, it's a question as old as civilization. When does a civil issue become a moral or spiritual issue? That line can look so very bright when we are looking at the past. How many other people have wondered what you would have done if your Jewish neighbors had been carted off to supposed deportations in Palestine? Clearly, that was a moral or spiritual question, but it's likely that in the moment, the only clarity was that you yourself would be in danger if you did anything about it. But we live in a modern democracy. So for me, when my Hispanic and African origin neighbors are being carted off to remote locations for later deportation by a masked police force answerable only to the White House, I contact my congressional representatives. All of my PA representatives assured me that they were all for getting rid of the immigrant criminal element. The rapists and dangerous aliens had to be deported. None of them addressed my actual request, which was to control the funding and oversight for ICE and state what lines they believed must be respected in immigration policing. As it happened, Congress has allotted an institution establishing budget of $170 billion to ICE, plus an additional $11 billion to DHS for immigration control. That can be compared, so that $181 billion can be compared to the $8 to $9 billion annually spent on the entire federal prison system. And it is close to the combined total annual budgets for the entire food stamps program plus the entire budget for surface transportation, including highways and public transportation. So just let that sink in. They want to embroil food and transport programs in miles of anti-fraud process, but they have written checks equivalent to the entire food stamps and ground transportation budgets to unsupervised private prison providers, and to acquire the military staff and equipment to fill those prisons. I received replies from our elected officials that were clearly written for a topic related but tangential to my concerns. Senator David McCormick thanked me for sharing my thoughts about the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. While he supports full transparency, Senator McCormick let me know that, quote, "I stand with the ICE and Border Patrol officers who risk their lives daily to protect our communities and uphold the rule of law." He went on to suggest that inflammatory rhetoric and violent protests have put law enforcement officers and others at risk. Now, Congressman Scott Perry, as you might imagine, took the opportunity to send me some Biden propaganda and went on at great length about Democrat states where federal officers were abandoned to deal with trained and coordinated agitators. The onus of preventable deaths, Congressman Perry told me, was clearly on the shoulders of anyone who messages that immigration law may be interfered with. So I find Scott Perry frankly menacing, but also kind of challenging. So I don't know if the senator or congressman would consider my first posters inflammatory. You can see concerned about putting money into institutions that promote our well-being, flowing out into institutions that promote misery with the nomic, who then is our neighbor, bordering it. But I'm pretty sure they would have found reprehensible my second round of posters, which was to stop ICE pogroms, which are what the programs are beginning to look like. And if you'll turn that around, and you see here, it's actually a little dangerous. Never one to let a hot tragedy go unused. You can keep that up for a second. Donald Trump declared after the shooting of Charlie Kirk that the use of fascist epithets against anyone he supports are akin to terrorist agitation and will be treated as such. Which begs the question, do these people have no self-awareness? Isn't it the most fascist thing you can think of to criminalize anti-fascism? But this is no joke. Recently, several protest organizers in Texas were labeled as Antifa and given sentences of 30 to 70 years in prison. Okay, that's good. Clearly, my government representatives, although they appreciate my sharing my concerns, offer only further collaboration with ICE and further persecution of immigrants, illegal or legal, and persecution of US citizens that try to protest those actions. That radical left rag, the Wall Street Journal, has done a summary in video of ways in which ICE intimidates, gasses, and arrests Americans. There are bills in the Pennsylvania Senate right now that seek to toughen penalties to ICE protesters. So that leaves me wandering around, and by the way, that is just the beginning, right? Then it can spread to any kind of protest. So that leaves me wandering around with my little cardboard signs and kicking money into various organizations that I think are trying to aid immigrants, those who are legal and those who are trying to become legal. But meanwhile, there are those people actually stolen away into these camps, and I can't stop thinking about just the pure ache of having children over the age of 5 torn away and incarcerated by themselves, let alone the other hellscape descriptions that leak out. So I wanted to send a message to them, and in April I got an inspiration. I was invited by a close friend from college to attend an annual day of remembrance that her Zen temple holds each year to commemorate those who survived the Japanese detention camps during the 1940s, as did both her parents. One story really hit my buttons. I hope I get through it without crying. It was about someone's mother who had kept this old quilt from her time in the camps for her whole life. And her daughter asked her, "Why do you keep this old thing?" The mother explained that she had been pregnant when she was interned, and they were always cold. They only had one thin blanket. But there was this community of Amish people nearby, and the Amish people would come and throw food over the fence for the Japanese people. And one day, this Amish woman brought a quilt and threw it to the expectant mother. And the mother kept it all those years because it reminded her that she had been seen in those horrible circumstances and that people could be so full of loving kindness. And so I thought maybe I could at least be there in some way, maybe figure out some act of kindness to do later. Because one of the country's biggest detention camps is up in Phillipsburg, just a little distant from State College. And I thought I could go there and just kind of witness. So I made this sign. Thank you to my lovely assistants. I drove up there in May thinking I would just stand someplace off the property and somebody might be able to see this sign through a window or a fence. But as it turns out, the place is completely inaccessible. I pulled into a lot of transport vehicles trying to figure out what to do, and a guard came out to shoo me away. He told me no one was allowed nearby, no one was allowed in unless they had a specific appointment made with the camp for a very specific inmate with a specific number. So I couldn't even really witness the building. It is in complete secret. And I reflect that even elected officials are turned away from these centers. I didn't even have a place to stand with my sign, let alone foist quilts over a fence. So I have since discovered, by the way, that there is a local woman who comes and sets up tables with donated clothing because after going through the incredible hassle of making the appointment and going all the way to Phillipsburg, relatives are often turned away because they are wearing a hoodie or the wrong kind of shirt or some other list of requirements. But my calls to her were unreturned. Also unanswered, you could put that down. Also unanswered were my offers to drive people to Phillipsburg that I made to MILPA, the Immigrant Leadership Organization in PA. And maybe it's just too dangerous to answer an anonymous outreach like that. So what I work on now is not losing the light. I think about the long history of anti-immigration in the US, 1798 Alien and Sedition Acts, the Anti-Irish Acts of the 1830s and 40s, the Chinese Exclusion Act of the 1880s, the eugenic sterilization campaigns of immigrants at the turn of the century. And by the way, legal aid societies say that involuntary sterilization still goes on at the border. And of course, the Japanese internment camps. But even while I look for a place to stand, to make a stand, I'm proud at least to be in that tradition of objection against these abuses of humanity. As Hannah Arendt pointed out, to be stateless in the modern world is to have no human rights. And if civic states will not respect the humanity of people, only people of faith will, only we will. So I'm proud that our own symbol, the chalice, was designed by a refugee from Nazi Germany to be a sign of welcome to other refugees and dissidents. Welcome and help. So I'll try to be that chalice when I can, maybe double down on a personal commitment like Kevin trying to help our Haitian members' family with legal emigration, where our friends Michael and Benny, who sponsor an Afghani family, even bought a house for them to live in. Those are kindnesses that will last multiple lifetimes. Meanwhile, I'll just shine my little light wherever I can into the dark. At 2:30 today, for example, I plan to be at the action at the governor's mansion to encourage a welcoming Pennsylvania whose state police and highway patrolmen will not cooperate with ICE even, or because, as Scott Perry reminds us, ICE operations run very smooth in states that cooperate. And surely that would help make the administration's goal of 3,000 arrests per day and 1 million deportations per year possible. This protest for a welcoming Pennsylvania will no doubt be very thinly attended, not much of a match for the $14 billion that the ICE budget sets aside for states that do cooperate, but I need to keep that light in me, at least for my own sake. So you can vote on which sign I should bring at the coffee hour.
Let us now open our hearts and minds to these words of prayer offered by Deborah Hafner for all that is good in our lives. May we whisper thank you for all that is good in our lives. Thank you. Join with me. Thank you. May we shout thank you for the abundance of blessings. Thank you. May we feel thank you, thank you, thank you, deep within our hearts and around us now. May we be thankful down to our bones for this time together. May we take the time to feed each other, take care of each other, appreciate the trust each other has, and say, thank you. It's the only prayer we'll ever need. Now is the time when we engage as a community in the sharing of our joys and sorrows, our concerns and milestones. When we join together to hold each other in support and in celebration, we deepen our sense of interrelationship. We may find our sorrows eased and our joys magnified. I invite you now to share them by writing them on a slip of paper or typing them in the virtual chat. Please indicate whether your message is okay to say out loud. You can also honor whatever you are holding in your heart by placing a stone in the water of community. Please come down the center aisle and return to your seats by the side aisles. Spoken or unspoken, our hearts join with yours in carrying all that life brings. From Carlotta Capatina. Greetings from Nova Scotia, Canada. Please send UU healing thoughts to David Powell, who has been recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. We just learned of this diagnosis while on our trip to Maine and Canada. From Direya. I recently had surgery for endometriosis. After being cleared, I was bitten by a dog. I am hoping August has more positive blessings. From Wenji. My sorrow is, last week we lost our home. The owner asked us to be out in 15 days. We were very worried and could not sleep because I kept thinking about where we would leave. My joy is that yesterday we found a room to rent. We are relieved to find a new place. From Jim Kavanaugh. Our UCH booths at Pride went wonderfully. It was a long day, and we made many new friends. It's a joy that I could help our booth succeed, and a sorrow that it's likely the last time. From Nancy Hall. I have a situation that is both a concern and joy. My son and his girlfriend and their dogs had to flee their apartment in Brooklyn, New York City, due to the flooding from the recent storms. Broken underground pipes of both water and sewage. Anyway, they will be moving in with their Umar, my cat master, and myself. Umar is not happy about this. I love them all, and thankfully Derek and Eunice are easygoing, but it will be an adjustment, and I have much to do to prepare my home, so we can all live together in peace and harmony. Prayers and positive energy appreciated. I place one last stone for all of those joys and sorrows not shared. All that has been shared and those many concerns we hold deep in our hearts and yet remain unspoken. We journey with love in each other.
Me again, asking for money again. We are a freely gathered congregation because we still have the freedom to gather and to share the convictions in our hearts. This church is financed completely by us, only by us, and the money that we collect in the plate each week really matters. It also matters because we share half the offering plate each month with a like-minded organization, and this month we share with Peace Promise. Peace Promise promotes awareness and education on sexual trafficking and gives direct support and care to survivors of human trafficking in the Harrisburg area. If you go to the coffee shop in Camp Hill, the cafe Good Grounds is primarily run by and benefits survivors, and it is a program of Peace Promise. Human trafficking is real and devastating, and it happens here and everywhere. Our own promotion of peace requires us all to open our hearts and sometimes our wallets as well. Please give as generously as you are able.
All right, y'all, how's it going? I noticed that the section I'm speaking on is Good Neighbors. That's appropriate because I'm coming to you from public media. We have the Mr. Rogers Spirit and Philosophy. We have Good Neighbor Day over at the WITF Media Center, which we can see you. I imagine you can see us throughout one of these windows. So I'm Jordan Wilkie. I'm one of the reporters over there. And I'm here today to speak about some of the immigration coverage that I've done. And I'm going to speak about several of the same things that Mary spoke about, mostly bearing witness. So, I mean, that's what journalism is. It's bearing witness. There's structure around it. There's rules. There's expectations that we meet as an industry. But in the end, our catchphrase is the first draft of history. And what that means is we're documenting. So I want to go through a few points on that, and I'm actually going to wander around. So I think the first thing to know about this administration versus previous administrations, as has been noted, America has an incredibly long history of profound xenophobia and deportation agendas. This administration is different in that capacity because the rules are changing, and the rules are changing faster than they have, sort of at least in recent memory. So what's happening a lot right now is people are saying, oh, can you help us? Our case is exceptional. Can you cover this case? Under any other rules, we would already be out. The Trump administration is sort of arbitrarily changing some of the rule sets that require someone to remain detained while their case is going through immigration courts. And I think that is one of the things why immigration is so front of mind, is there's this new process right now that is focused so much on arrest and detention while the immigration proceedings sort of go through the courts, and those proceedings are being sped up. As the money was mentioned, $181 billion budget for ICE. There's not enough journalism to counter that. There are not enough reporters to counter that. Some of the structure thing that's happening here is there's more money going into ICE enforcement, but over the last 20 years, there's been less and less money. The business model for journalism has been broken. And so how do you really act as the first draft of history when so much history is passing you by? You simply cannot capture everything that's happening. And I've done some immigration coverage in the last year. I've done a significant amount of other coverage. There's just no possible way to capture it. And so one of the things I want to talk to you about is, so what do you do, right? I think the easy answer is hire more journalists. We just asked for money, so I don't know if anyone has, $80,000 laying around per year to hire another reporter to do, several stories. Obviously, if we just had that, we would have that, right? If we had that, we would already have more reporters. I think what we're facing is a much more challenging situation where we need to figure out how people can act as documenters without having to rely on other institutions that already exist. So how do you act as documenters? I've seen calls for joining justice teams. Social justice teams. Feels very Justice League. There need to be ways for more people to participate because the institutions that we have now are changing, and the ones that we have relied on, like the institutions of journalism, are less strong than they used to be. That's not true necessarily for things like the New York Times, but it is true for journalism, particularly local journalism. We are much, much, much weaker than we were 20 years ago. That's just how the industry has changed. That is how the flow of money has changed. That is what has been wrought by social media. And so the thing that I would like you to think about is how can you then act as a witness to the things that are going on. There are the ways that are more activist-oriented, of going to sites and standing there and showing the people who are being affected that they are seen. And then there are other ways. There are programs that's actually called documenters. That program is meant to help fill in the gap of journalists aren't going to local board meetings anymore. They're not covering city council and things like that. And so there's a program that teaches people to go out and go to those meetings and write about them so people can actually stay engaged with their local government. Well, we need that in many more ways. One of the main challenges that I have is processing all of the information that comes to me about all of the cases and all of the people who are being detained and then fact-checking all of their stories to see, is what is happening to this person what is actually, or what the advocates are saying happening to this person, what is actually happening to this person. That is an incredibly time-consuming process, and what I need in my job, and I think what journalists need, and what people need when they're trying to sort out what's happening in the world, is they need more people doing that work, listening to people tell their stories, and then fact-checking that and documenting it, because we may not be able to do anything about it now, but there was reference to 1938 in Germany. What we document now will become what we make of history. And so, this is my message for journalism. I'm trying to do that for myself. That's my role as a journalist. But it is something that I don't mean to speak poorly about myself, but that is something that I am not equal to. And I think if you look at all of the journalism around immigration in Pennsylvania over the last couple of years, we have done some incredible work, but we are not equal to the full scope of the changes that have been wrought by this administration. And I don't think we were even equal to the challenges around immigration that were happening before this administration. And I think that's been true across several different aspects of our society. But I say that to say that journalism needs additional support, not necessarily in giving us more money for more reporters. I will accept that too. Absolutely. And if you want to do that, I can direct you to the right people at WITF. They'll love me for it. But I think the much more difficult challenge is figuring out how to witness and how to document and how to preserve information so that even if people can't do anything with it now, that it will be preserved for posterity so people down the line can use it for the history books, for creating new policies, for reflecting on what actually happened during our time now. And I can say, I will give one very small example from my coverage. So in March of last year, there was a press conference in the Capitol. And Dauphin County Commissioner Justin Douglas stood at a podium and had a number of folks from the Bhutanese Nepali community behind him, and they were saying, our folks are being detained and they're going to be deported, and we're very worried about this, because what had happened is Nepali-speaking people who had been living in Bhutan, I'll say roughly around 1900, there was work that could be done in parts of Bhutan. They went there as immigrants, they worked, multiple generations passed, they had property, they're becoming engaged in the political economy, and then the powers that be in the 1980s said, we actually don't want this. And so they forced out over 100,000 Nepali-speaking Bhutanese from Bhutan across a little stretch of northern India and into refugee camps in Nepal. It's a relatively small population, and so there was a relatively easy solution of international agreement, and that was, we'll take these folks in as refugees. The United States took in the vast majority. People went to Australia, they went to various parts of Europe, but the United States took most of the Nepali-speaking Bhutanese refugees here, and central Pennsylvania has become a hub for them. So we have a very strong population here. So then through some reporting investigation, I found that the initial claims, I don't think these were intentionally false, but the initial statements from the Nepalis, from the community leaders were that these folks all have green cards and they're here legally and they're being picked up. Now, through all the intricacies of immigration law and criminal law, a lot of these folks actually had removal orders already, but they couldn't be removed because Bhutan wasn't accepting them back. Somehow, the Trump administration has created a policy agreement with Bhutan that Bhutan will then accept these groups back, and they'll let them stay overnight in a hotel, and then they'll put them on a bus, and they'll drive them to the border, and they'll push them into northern India and say, have fun. These folks are now stateless. We don't know where most of them are going or what is happening to most of them. There are networks, there are communities, they're still being engaged, with folks back here, so the local communities are keeping track of some of the folks who are being deported, but mostly we don't know what's happening to them. So when we go back to this period, whenever someone wants to write this in the history, there will just have to be a footnote that says, we don't know, right? It would take an extraordinary amount of effort, and it's not that many people, you know, relatively speaking. It's not that many people. We don't know how many it will happen to across the country. We don't know how many people it's happened to across the country. There are fights in court to get these records from the federal government. How many people have they deported? But then, once they're out of the country, we don't have those records anymore. It's going to be very difficult to go find what happened to them. This is the challenge that we're facing. I could be spending 100% of my time on this and still not get the full story. I've only touched it here and there. And really, as you know, I think it's fair to say that I've done the most reporting of the local journalists on this. Like, this is vanishing into history. And so when you think about what is there to do, I think the challenge is figuring out how to hear more stories and document them in a way that can be preserved. And if you do that, that actually helps me tremendously, because then when I write my stories, I say it like it's just like I'm writing my stories. You know, when I watch my stories during the soap operas. When I report and I write these accountability investigative pieces, when I write these explainers, that will help give me context, because I can only hear so much and I can only know so much, and I rely so much on other newsrooms, other reporting. It would be nice to have an expanded network of other information sources that I can rely on. And right now, given the scope of the challenges from the administration, given the scope of actions from the administration, there really isn't that much to lean on. It's different in places like Chicago. It's different in places like Atlanta, these major metropolitan areas where there's extremely long histories of organizing. It's a little lacking here in central Pennsylvania. And there are very real reasons for that, and it's a very difficult problem to solve, but it's a problem that I wanted to bring in front of you today. And I'll be out and about later, downstairs. I'll be where I'm supposed to be. See y'all soon.
Will
from Sam Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people.